So let's start with a definition on what is product market fit. So you've probably all heard Y Combinator's mantra, which is, there we go, make something people want. If I was to modify this, I would say make something a lot of people want, because that incorporates a little bit about the market, but we'll talk about that. So first, we'll go over the stages of a company. So obviously, you start off with, I have an idea, and everything is really exciting, and you're telling all your friends about the idea. This is the very birth of a company. Let's go through some of the phases. So this is roughly all of the phases of a company. It starts with idea, you get to prototype phase, you then get to launch, traction, monetization, and growth. I put monetization after traction because oftentimes that's the way it goes. And actually going from launch and getting to traction is product market fit. Monetization is actually a much easier problem than product market fit. This is sort of the initial product market fit search. Initial product market fit search is between idea and traction. So getting from idea to traction is probably the hardest thing and the thing that kills the most companies. All right, here we go. One thing not to forget is that when you're in this phase too, you're still refining product market fit. A lot of companies forget that. They get so focused on scaling and so focused on continuing to grow the business, and they completely forget that you're still refining and still building product market fit at this stage. So really important not to forget this. All right, so what are the hardest things at a startup? And I'm convinced that there's basically only two hard things. Number one is finding product market fit. It's really, really, really hard. Most companies will not be able to find product market fit. It's incredibly challenging. Number two is hiring and building a world-class team. That is also incredibly challenging. It's very unintuitive, and it's very, very difficult to sort of grow through that rapid growth phase and to emerge on the other side with sort of an enduring, long-lasting company and culture. Making money, I put as a very distant third. It is usually a lot harder to build a product that a lot of people really, really want than it is to figure out how to make money from that product. And then the fourth one, and we won't cover this too much, but to scale to a really big, long, enduring company, you need to build an organization that scalably and repeatedly launches great products. And that's really, really hard because it's not just going to be about the founders anymore. It's about the organization doing so scalably and repeatably. One other sidebar is that the best companies will create a market. So if you look at sort of what Weebly's done, if you look at what Airbnb's done, if you look at what Dropbox has done, all companies have created their own market. I say this because by definition here, market research is not going to help. Market research is research on existing markets, right? And you're going to create a new market. So how do you do that? What does that look like? So first of all, you need to find a hidden need. So there is a need out in the market that a lot of companies or a lot of people don't realize exists. And if people realized it existed, if it was obvious, then everyone would be doing it. And so the hardest part is finding this hidden need. And everyone is going to tell you that the idea is dumb. Everyone's going to tell you it's stupid. I remember in the summer of 2006, after writing that first line of code, I went and pitched Weebly at the New York Tech Meetup, and it was 1,000 people. We were kind of alpha stage at that point, and it was in front of 1,000 people, and I gave a 5-minute demo, and then Scott, the founder of Meetup.com, came on stage and just said he thought it was the stupidest idea that he'd ever heard, and that no one needed to make websites, and that people who need to make websites already could, or people just had to learn to code. And in front of 1,000 people told us that we had the stupidest fucking idea he'd ever heard. So the point I'm making is, if it's obvious, then everyone will be doing it. So you're kind of finding a new reason. Now, the hidden need in this particular case was that there was a lot of people who needed to make a website themselves, and that was really hard because a lot of the tools at the time were geared towards people who were hand coding the websites, basically like FrontPage and Dreamweaver. We were able to realize that people wanted to do that and build a service that enabled people to do that. But figure out, what are you a substitute for? What need are you serving better? What job are people hiring you to do? What are people trying to do? People aren't trying to make a website. People are trying to launch and grow their business, right? So understanding what's the job people are trying to do, and then what substitutes are there for that job. And so when you think from that mindset, you might think, well, there's a website. You could also create a Facebook page. So there's lots of different substitutes for that job. I think a really important one is understanding where are you getting pulled? Where are your customers pulling you? You shouldn't be pushing your customers towards a solution. When things are working, your customers are beating a path to your front door, and they're pulling you and saying, "No, you need to do this?" And you're saying, "Yeah, but that's not what our product does." They say, "Well, I'm going to kind of hack it to do that anyway." When you find people hacking your product to do something it wasn't intended to do, pay attention to that and double down on that. And then often what you initially create will seem to fit into an existing market, but with less functionality, right? So it's the same thing with the iPhone. It was the same thing with Weebly. Oftentimes it doesn't have 3G. It doesn't have apps. It doesn't have any of these things initially. But what it does do is it enables a whole new market, a whole set of new entrants to come and use your product. And so the success of the iPhone wasn't that it successfully competed against smartphones. It sure looked like a smartphone, but it wasn't competing against any smartphones that were out there. Because what happened is there was maybe at that point in time, I was a heavy Palm Trio user, there was maybe a couple million smartphone users in the United States. What the iPhone did is it made everyone a smartphone user. And so there was all of a sudden a whole bunch of new entrants. And then over time, it also cannibalized the existing smartphone market. So the next is on building a remarkable product. So what does this process look like? And I'll try to break it down into very literal steps about exactly what you should be doing. So everyone knows this, right? Step 1, have a great idea. Step 2, talk to customers. Step 3, something happens there. And step 4, profit, right? Everyone knows this, but what is step 3, right? Because that's where everyone's plodding around in the desert, like trying to figure out what the hell to do, and nothing's working. So let's talk about step 3. So step 3 is literally this list of things. So you talk to customers and develop a market thesis. Try to understand exactly what their pain point is. What's that job they're trying to get done, and how can you help them get it done faster or better? This is really important. Listen to their problems, not their solutions. So customers will tell you the pain that they're facing, listen to that. When they talk about the solutions, their proposed solutions, you could just completely ignore that because they generally aren't that great. Number 3, go through a rapid prototyping and user testing phase. Number 4, you build a solution to their problems. Number 5, test the solution with them. Number 6, did it work? Go to 1, repeat. And then number 7, by the time you sort of looped on points 1 to 6, you probably looped about 27 times, and that has some interesting implications, but no one ever gets it right on the first shot. No one gets it right on the first shot. So there's some implications there.